Hey, Dr. Daren Martin here. I am so excited. This is the very first podcast of the Global Company Culture Association. It feels great being back in the studio, and I'm really looking forward to this show that we're going to be bringing you that is going to talk all about company culture. By the way, I need to introduce the co-host, the great Elise Martin.
Me.
who is the VP and co-founder of the Global
GCCA.
Company Culture Association. I don't think we can use the initials yet because people don't know what GCCA is.
You spell out the entire word, I'll just abbreviate
Okay,
it, and eventually
great.
people will get it.
That makes it a lot easier. So we started this whole association because company culture is the single largest conversation going on around the world when it comes to business. I mean, it is being talked about and it is being, mixed and reviewed and looked at, and people are trying to come at it from all angles. And a lot of people just don't seem to be able to solve this puzzle.
Or they can't seem to get what is it, what to do with it.
Yeah, what is it? What is
do you
this
do?
thing? I mean,
It just feels gooey. Like, what is the culture thing? Do I buy them some scooters and move on?
Yeah. I love scooters. Scooters is great. But no, it's 16% of executives. The statistics show, that's easy for me to say. Statistics show 16% of executives say their company culture is where it needs to be. So I was sitting in my chair, just backstory, I don't know, a bad gauge of time. April, let's just say April of 2019. And I'm sitting in my chair. It's really early in the morning. It was one of those not normal, but sometimes mornings where I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And, I write about company culture. I speak about company culture. This is my jam. This is what I do. I'm called a culture architect. And I'm sitting in my chair and I'm thinking, hey, you know what? There's no organizing body. There is no gathering place for everybody who's interested in company culture. And that encompasses a lot of different people. You got speakers, writers like me, you've got researchers, you've got groups like Gallup and OC Tanner and Predictive Index. You've got all of these companies. Then you've got all of the people that are providing software, right? The ADPs and the Paycoms
Ultimate
and the
software.
Ultimate software, absolutely. So you've got different people that are really trying to solve this, and then we've got the executives, the small business owners, the managers who are saying, how do I make this work?
So basically, we've become the pie, the full pie. People have only had access to slices. There's this thing you can get and this thing, and then you can train your executives. And now you've got a whole pie, right? Everything you need in one spot, right?
So you call it a pie, I call it a platform. But the reality is that what we're going to do is take all of those resources and broadcast them. I mean, I had somebody ask me a while back, well, are you competing with what we're doing? I'm like, no, we're not competing with what you're doing. Are you kidding me?
We don't want to compete. We want to solve the culture problems.
We want to solve this thing. So it was interesting. That day I thought, okay, well, just how big is this conversation around company culture? So I Googled 2 words, company culture.
What'd you get?
It came back with 6 billion.
Whoa.
300 million results. Now, get your mind around that.
Golly.
6 billion, 300 million. So I wanted to reference it and see, well, okay, but how does that compare to everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to admit, I Googled Taylor Swift. I thought, okay, let's see. She's big. Let's see how big Taylor Swift is.
Shout out Taylor.
She was huge. It was 350 million. Now, do the math. Millions to billions, it's not even a thing. So I thought, okay, I got to go bigger than Taylor Swift. So not to be sacrilegious, okay, I don't mean this in a sacrilegious way, but I thought, what's big? And
Buddha?
so I Googled Buddha. I Googled God. God was 6,700 million. So I jokingly say God's bigger than company culture, but not by much.
Wow.
Right? I mean, you just think of what people are kind of looking for. So that told me that no, we really are onto something. This is extremely important. So can I give you some numbers?
Give me some numbers.
You ready? You gonna write these down?
I'm ready to know.
You got these? Okay.
I'm gonna memorize them.
So here's the reality, and we know this from research done by Gallup, by Deloitte, OC Tanner, different companies that have been digging into this data for a long time.
Right.
85% of people, you ready? 85% of people around the globe blank their job.
Is it?
Hate.
Oh my goodness.
85% of people
That's
hate
shocking.
their job. I mean, think about that.
Shocking.
That means that you've got all of these people that are coming to work. They're miserable, okay? So I say, people...
I think that might be accurate. When I think about it, all the places I've worked, how many people were actually happy?
Okay, so think about it this way. I'm going to give you 2 different physical reactions, okay? And you get to pick. Is this Monday or Friday? Okay. By my demeanor.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
I'm
you
ready.
get to say whether it's Monday or Friday, all right?
All right. Okay, you look kind of sad and droopy, like you took too many sleeping pills. I'm going to say Monday.
Monday! Absolutely Monday. Now, what about this one?
Oh, you're raising your hands and flipping them around. Friday,
Right?
Friday.
Okay. In fact, people crawl in on a Monday morning. They dance out on a Friday.
Right.
We've got a term for
don't
it.
just-
Initials, TGI Friday,
They don't-
right? TGIF.
They don't just
Even
do
named
that.
a restaurant
They do like
after
a
it.
countdown. What was the conversation you had with the
Okay.
barista
So
the other
this
day?
is crazy. You can't call them a barista because that might identify the particular coffee shop.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just kidding. Which, by the way, has a great culture. But so I'm checking out my coffee. I told you this the other day, and the guy goes, "Hey, are you ready for the weekend?" And look, occupational hazard with what we do. We're traveling, we're speaking. Sometimes it's on the weekend, sometimes Tuesday. We never know what day of week it is. Sometimes it's Monday, and I think
we
it's
just
Friday.
follow the calendar.
Right? We just follow the calendar. So he goes, "Hey, are you ready for the weekend?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. That's great. It's exciting." And then I went, "Wait a minute. Today's Wednesday." And he said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "But tomorrow is Friday Junior," which was Thursday, Friday Junior. And then I said, "Okay, I've never heard that term." He goes, "Yeah, that's what tomorrow is." I said, "Okay, well then what's Wednesday?" He said, "Wednesday is Thursday." So here's a person, his entire work week is built around the weekend. Let me get to Friday, right?
Wow.
If I can just get to Friday. What a sad state of affairs that is.
Means
That's really the state of work.
So that means that he's putting his mind in a state where Monday and Tuesday really suck.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And then you get to Wednesday, which is actually Thursday, and then you say Thursday is Friday Junior, and you just make it through, powering through it. And it doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
So in essence, you end up living 2 days out of a 7-day work week, right? You live for the weekend.
Yep.
Maybe Friday half day, so 2.5 days. But
Yep.
so, okay, 85% of people around the globe hate their job. All right, you ready for statistic number 2?
Give it to me.
15% high engagement or low engagement across the globe. 15% of people around the globe are highly engaged or are low engagement. You know the answer to this. 15% high engagement.
Oh, it just
okay?
popped up on the screen.
So
behind you.
what that there it is right there. So what that means is 85% of people are disengaged. Now, do you think there might be a connection between 85% of people hate their jobs, 85% of people are disengaged? Throw in the earlier statistics, 16% of executives say their culture's where it needs to be. It's a culture problem. We have a massive culture problem.
So many people attribute nowadays. You find big companies that are successful are talking about how company culture has made them successful. Gucci, for example, their CEO recently did an article where he said that he attributes their company success to their culture.
Okay, pronunciation alert.
What?
My wonderful co-host here, who grew up overseas like I did, occasionally pronounces words interestingly,
Wait.
like attributes instead of attributes.
Sorry.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah, and we're going to talk about some great cultures, and we may get to that in episode 2. But there's a lot of really, really bad cultures out there. Just look at the numbers. So we have to ask ourselves the question, look, if 85% of people hate their jobs, is it the workers? I don't even like that term.
People.
But is it the people? Is it the
People.
team members, right? The people going to the job. Is it that they just don't care anymore? Or it's those millennials, the millennials are dragging everything down. They hate their job. Is it the workers? Why are people showing up to work and hating their job? Could it be the workers?
What do you think it is?
Well, I don't think it's the workers, and I would use the example I always use, which is Japan, turn of the, right after World War II, where It was, their manufacturing was horrific. Made in Japan was a joke, right? That was a punchline. Then they completely changed their manufacturing, their philosophy, their paradigm around it. And guess what? They produce incredibly high quality products. So, and that was due to Japanese management and Edwards Deming and the influence he had over there. So you go with the same exact workers,
right,
put them in a different paradigm, a different model, and suddenly you see this huge shift in performance, production, everything that, profitability, okay? Is it the leaders? I mean, it could be that it's the leadership. When I ask, when I speak to these executives, I speak quite a bit for Avanta, and Avanta puts on these really world-class events, and they'll have a fairly small crowd, 150, 200, but they'll be top C-level executives from billion-dollar companies, right? And when I ask them, hey, what's the engagement rate? They don't say 29%, which, by the way, is the U.S. number according to Gallup. They say 15%, 4%, 2%. I've heard as low as 1%.
Literally, the longer you stare at them after you ask the
number just goes down.
Keep going
right?
down.
It just gets lower and lower.
He didn't say it, so yeah.
Which at some point you got to say, okay, if leader, you're in a company and you say your company has a 1% high engagement, presumably, hopefully that's you that you're thinking of, then you got to ask yourself a question. What the heck? Is this on me? Is this, it's got to be leaders laying awake at night saying, am I responsible for this? And in fairness, we had a great interview for the association yesterday with Boris Gomes. That's going to be posting soon from India. Right. And he was talking about just the leadership philosophy, the toxic culture that a lot of people work in. Right. That's there. It's certainly there in this country, right? People write whole books about it, very popular topic. But I know a lot of fantastic leaders out there that really want their company to do well, and they're struggling. They're frustrated. They don't know how to fix it, right?
I think when it comes to culture, we could make a list 10 miles long of all the attributes that come into culture, right? Leadership, hiring the right people, hiring personality as well as skills, right? Sometimes you hire for a skill set, but that person's personality is toxic to the environment. Then there's silos. It's just an endless list.
Endless.
And it all starts with, I think so, is with evaluating what you have, right? It's like a doctor checkup, right? Sitting down and evaluating what you have.
You're exactly right. We call that calling things by the right name, and we're going to talk about that in episode 2. Okay. How about it? Is that fair?
Fair.
Sound good?
Fair.
Okay. So low employee engagement, it's a real problem. Is it the team members? Is it the people going to work? Is it leadership? Let's watch this quick video about low engagement and how much it's costing you as a company, because I believe it is the largest silent tax on every company around the world. In fact, low engagement has been estimated to cost the global economy $7 trillion. $7 trillion. We heard the head of the Dallas Fed last night, and he was talking about the global economy and all this stuff. But I mean, that's a really big number. Watch this quick video about low employee engagement. Low employee engagement is expensive. It is costing you money. In fact, take the number of employees, let's say 100, and figure out what you think the level of high engagement is at your company. When I talk to senior level execs, when I'm doing my keynotes and I ask, hey, what's the typical engagement in an average company? They don't give me the Gallup poll number of 29%. They go much lower, 20, 15, 5%. I've heard as low as 2%, 1%. If you think at your company only 5% of the people are engaged, that means 95 are not. You are leaving 95% of your potential net profitability on the table. People are focusing on all sorts of things in terms of profit loss and all sorts of elements, cost of goods sold. The number one thing you need to be looking at is how is low employee engagement negatively impacting your bottom line. You want to get your bottom line up? You better focus on company culture. You better focus on company culture. So when I talk about the largest silent tax, if the impact of low engagement showed up on the balance sheet.
Right. Accounting would be screaming and running into your office saying,
Yeah,
you have to fix this.
We've got to stop this.
It's a leak. There's a leak in the boat.
The CEO would say, lock the doors. We're not moving one step forward
it's like somebody
until we
stabbed a hole into the boat and the water is like seeping out. And they're just like, oh, that doesn't affect us. It's just a tiny hole.
The boat's sinking. The platform's on fire. And it's just, it's amazing to me how little attention this deal changer gets in a lot of circles. And I think it's because people just don't know what to do about it.
I think they just don't believe in it. I mean, but when you look at big companies that are believing in it, right, and making it their important mission to handle it because they know the numbers, right?
Okay, so I think I listed something like this recently somewhere, but let's do this. So
Okay.
Leader approaches to company culture. Let's start at the bottom, all right? I had the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company that used to tell me, oh, that company culture, that's just some bogus words that a high-priced consultant made up, right? And he clearly was not a believer in it. He thought, oh, and I don't even know what that means, right? So you've got people who are not only not believing in it, but maybe dramatically opposed. They just say that's too fluffy.
And there are people that are saying that it's a new thing, but we know that from the Harvard study that that was done in the 80s.
Okay.
They were even talking about culture then.
Culture's been being talked about for a long time. There were some early people out of, I believe, MIT that might have coined the phrase, but it's been going on for a while. But so you've got leaders who say, don't believe in it.
Right.
And then you've got leaders who say, okay, it's a thing, it's out there, but it's certainly not the most important thing. It certainly doesn't compare to me tracking the numbers and profitability and profit share, all that stuff, right? Then you've got people who go, hey, I know it's really important. I hear it's important. I just don't know what to do about it. And so, teach me, educate me, or I'm just going to, la, 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 and just play, because I can't seem to fix it, get my arms around it. And so they throw stuff at it, and to see what sticks, right? And then there's the people that really
We've seen a few of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Then there's the leaders, the men and women out there that are in positions of authority where they can make a change or a difference, although I think everybody can. Right, who get it and who are building their culture around it. We've interviewed some great people who truly get it, and we'll be bringing those videos, to the association. Those things are starting to roll out.
Right.
So you've got to map and say, as a leader, or even as a team member, what's my position on that? Where does it matter? Okay.
I think everyone in the company can contribute.
There's word number 2.
That's the second one. I pronounced differently. I think I say it right. I think it's
contribute.
I don't know.
It turns out, I looked it up, that's actually more the British pronunciation, I believe. So okay, so you got to figure out where you map to that. All right. Now, let me give you some examples of what some other people have said about the importance of company culture.
What?
Yes.
Tell me.
Lou Gerstner comes to IBM, 1992. They were going broke. They were potentially going to have to declare bankruptcy.
They were wearing penguin suits, right?
Yeah,
everybody was dressed the same.
Everybody dressed the same, did the same, right? So Gerstner said, when I first came to IBM, by the way, spoiler alert, you already know this, but he turned the company around and they went on to become the successful company that they are now. But they were in some really serious trouble. Even the U.S. government were saying we can't have our blue chip stock go belly up, right?
Well, the U.S. government needed IBM when they first arrived because all those big computers they were using for NASA and everything. Come on.
Yes.
They can't lose those.
I thought you meant that the U.S. needed them when the U.S. first arrived, but you meant IBM first arrived.
Yeah,
okay,
because you saw the movie with the computers used to be people.
Right.
People were computers, right?
What was the movie?
I don't remember the name, but it was a great movie. But yes.
Anyway, the mathematicians that would sit there and figure. Okay.
Yeah.
So at any rate, Gerstner said this: when I first got to IBM, I knew that culture was an important part of the game, along with strategy, finances, planning, product, place, all this stuff, right?
Right.
He said, I'm paraphrasing, and this is in his book, Who Says Elephants Can't Dance, which is about his turnaround. Yeah,
Goodness.
IBM being the elephant. He said this, I realized halfway through the project that company culture, I was wrong, company culture was not an important part of the game. He said company culture is the game. If you don't change the culture, you don't change the company.
True.
And he did that with a number of ways. He outlawed the penguin suits where everybody marched and looked the same, right? He outlawed acronyms. I mean, he just tore things up in terms of restructuring. Alan Mulally, we'll tell that story sometime, comes to Ford. He made a lot of really strategic moves, but largely his success in turning Ford around was because he changed it from a culture of fear to a culture of responsibility and trust and being willing to help each other, collaboration, right?
True.
We were at an event the other day, and Mark Cuban was speaking,
Right.
and I asked Mark, hey, Mr. Cuban, I think I called him Mark. Hey, Mark, you are invested in 150 companies, you run a whole bunch of others.
Right.
In your opinion, how important is company culture to the success of a company? And he said this twice. Culture is everything. He says, culture is everything. Okay, so I've given 3 examples, right?
Are you trying to show me up by saying you have 3 examples?
Hey, I'll give you one more.
Oh, right. Fine. 4.
Sarah Happ, which we met at the New York Stock Exchange.
Right.
We
We actually
were both,
interviewed her for a real
we
talk
did
episode.
interview her. We got a little short street segment with her. We were both on Cheddar.
You can definitely check
did
that
a
out on
Cheddar
our
interview.
website. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll put a link to that. So Sarah was on there, and I asked her how important is culture. So Sarah started this what's it called?
Scrub. Sugar scrub.
Sugar scrub from her kitchen
For
table.
lips, yeah.
They now have an office where everybody comes together. It's not still at her house, but she's got some place where everybody works out of the same space. And she said, it's vital. She said, if we don't get that right, then people are frustrated. They're coming to work. They're at odds with each other. So you've got some really strong, profound leaders who have done some significant things saying it is the single most important thing.
Oh, yes.
So why do so few leaders really make it their number one job? I mean, what happens if a CEO goes into the board of directors, they might get some more traction these days, but says, you know what, all these other things, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to spend 90% of my time trying to get our culture right. Would that be viewed?
I think the board of directors would throw up their hands and reject it. But I think that if the problem comes, in my opinion, that the CEO has so many other things to do, the leader, so many other things to do, and culture, even though it's so important, tends to fall off that list. But I think what every company should have is a culture officer or a people officer or somebody whose only job is culture. Right?
Well, I agree. And
that could even be an elected position if your company doesn't have money, to hire one, right?
So VaynerMedia has this with the great Claude Silver. She's the chief heart officer, friend of ours. We'll have to have her on the show at some point. And some people are doing that, but I think really ultimately everybody in the company ought to be responsible for the culture.
Yes.
And it ought to be order of business number one. So I'm going to dangle a carrot, okay? If you're not convinced yet, think about this. One Harvard study showed that when you get your culture right, companies that get their culture right, this is a long study they did with a bunch of companies, that you see an increase to your net profitability of 756% over the course of 10 years.
Holy moly.
756%.
Oh my goodness.
I was wondering how long we were going to get into the podcast before you issued the holy moly line. Your favorite, everybody loves the holy moly. So, I mean, that's a big number. And if that's not, interesting enough, companies that get their culture right just thrive financially, and people like going to work there.
You thrive financially, the employees are happy, the customers are happy, your bank account is happy.
It's a total win.
Everybody's happy.
I can't think of a company that works on and gets their culture right and they don't prosper, okay? Sweet greens. We ate when they were in New York. I wish I'd bring them to Dallas, Texas. It's
Cabbage,
phenomenal.
the company Cabbage is a
Cabbage,
chief people officer. They have a 90% employee
satisfaction.
Yeah,
okay, you've got Costco. You've got In-N-Out Burger. I mean, you've got so many companies that BarkBox that have focused on it and really produced just amazing results. So, all right, we've been talking a lot about the problem. Our next episode is going to focus on how do we fix it? What's the solution?
We're going to
how
be
do we
getting
do
out our
it?
hammer and chisel.
So, by the way, hey, that we gotta show our fancy mugs here. This one, I told you that you had to use the pink one, right? Because that's actually a handmade one. We just slapped a Global Company Culture Association sticker on the back of a Real News PR glass. I love it. Get a little shot of that.
Okay.
This is cool swag that the association's producing. So, all right, let's talk real quickly about the association. Mm-hmm. Membership organization.
Tell me about it.
It's meant for everybody. Anybody interested in company culture. If you're writing about it, you're speaking about it, you're researching it, working in it, you're a manager.
Or you want to go to your boss and you need some info.
Look, but I said on a show the other day. It was actually on Good Morning Texas. Mm-hmm. I said my sister's a quilter. She hangs out with quilters. She reads quilters magazines. She does quilter stuff, right? Because she learns tips and tricks and gets all of this feedback from other people and input. We can learn much more together than we can trying to do it on our own.
Yep.
Gamers, same thing. We've got a very close person to us who makes a living on Twitch playing video games.
Right.
Reads gamer stuff, hangs out with gamers. So we wanted a place where all of the people who are interested in changing the world of work, driving this, what we call evolution at work,
right,
who want the solutions, who want the tips, who want the latest strategies that they can apply to have a place to hang out and learn from each other,
right,
and accelerate this, right, because we're dead serious about fixing this global economic, global crisis.
Fix it.
What if 85% of people love their jobs? Can you imagine how much better our world would be if people were loving their jobs?
Right. It's like Stan Slap that said, if you hate your job, you're grumpy, you go home, you take it home to your children, your children pass it on to the neighbor's children because dad was mad today and they're
mom,
sad, and then
right,
passes it on to someone else. It's like a disease we are encouraging.
It just spreads this, right? And then guess
virus.
What? Then the only, the opiate of the masses, so we entertain ourselves. We watch TV for 5 hours because we hate our job.
We want to
forget. Bed, right?
We're
not creating. We're not writing books and doing it. Anyway, so we want to fix that. The Global Company Culture Association is dead set on doing that. We're doing some really cool things. We've got great interviews. Stan, you mentioned. We've got some great ones coming out. We're doing a little thing called Company Culture Curated, where you get an update every week or so about what's going on in the space, little quick hits so you can educate yourself. And then we're doing some really cool videos like this little snippet. This is the short version. We've got a much longer, 40 minutes?
Yes.
Interview with the great Stan Richards. If you're not familiar with Stan Richards.
If you've never heard of the Richards Group, you should check it out because we took you inside with this exclusive interview with Stan Richards. They got a whole gym and nap rooms.
They've got nap rooms. I love that. And yoga classes. But they're responsible for Chick-fil-A's success. They're responsible for Motel 6, the Tom Bodett ones they did way back when.
I didn't know that.
They've pushed so many brands to an iconic status. That's all Stan Richards. And the Richards Group, he actually wrote a book about it. He was a really early thinker on this in an agency environment where people don't do what he did, right?
Right.
But he wrote a book called The Peaceable Kingdom. Watch this quick hit little video with Stan Richards. I have been looking forward for weeks to speaking to the great, iconic Stan Richards. Stan Richards started the Richards Group in Dallas, Texas many years ago. Stan has built this company based on company culture and what he calls the Peaceable Kingdom.
Well, the title itself, Peaceable Kingdom, that comes from a painting that was done a long time ago where lions and lambs and all sorts of animals are lying down together and getting along very well. And that's the appellation that we put on this place. Fundamental to everything that we do is a belief that we have no less important people, that we are all equal in importance. Now, we're not all paid the same, we don't all do the same things, but we are all treated with the same level of respect, no matter what our function is or how much money we're paid.
85% of people say they hate their jobs, and it's not the case here at the Richards Group.
No.
In fact, you've had people leave, because that happens, right? They take other opportunities. But you've had a whole lot of people leave and they come back.
Those are boomerangs, and we have lots of them.
Boomerangs. I love it. So honored to have spent
So
that
much fun.
time
Ooh.
with Stan Richards. And we've got an interview, by the way, that we did yesterday. I'm not going to say who it was, but a really amazing leader.
We'll definitely talk about
And
that
what
next
he
week.
told me was, he said, Daren, I turned down 10 out of 10 interviews. He said, when this one came across and I accepted it, I said to the person, yeah, we'll do that one. And they looked at me like, wait, what? You're going to do an interview? So I'm excited to roll that one out.
We're honored. We're
all
honored.
sorts of cool resources that we're building up. We've got a great deal for you. It's a startup. We're getting this thing rolling. I can't believe how much we've already produced with it and the value that's there.
Mm-hmm.
But because it is a startup, we want you to be a charter member. So you can use this code, charter member, and get $100 off your association membership, which is a really, really great deal.
Yep.
So,
and I would
charter
jump on
member,
it now. I don't know how long we're going to be.
it's going to be limited time.
Yep.
So you definitely want to sign up. We'd love to have you come be a part of the team. We are on a mission to change the world of work, make everybody's lives better, leaders' lives better, people who are coming to work, make their lives better. And that's what we're going to do.
Help make great cultures greater.
And we're telling you about it right now. And years from now, we're going to look back on this show. Look, I really believe this. I'm stealing this from Stan Slapp.
Yes.
You can hear his interview on GCCA. But Stan said, years from now, grandparents are going to be asked by their grandchildren, hey, Grandpa, hey, Grandma, were you in the fight or were you not in the fight? Did you help lead this change?
Ooh,
I mean, when they
good.
read about, 85% of people hating their jobs and they look at the new world that they live in, they're going to be asking that question. And you got to decide, are you going to be in the fight or are you going to be on the sidelines? We hope you'll join the fight. Okay, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Next episode, we're going to be talking about what you can actually do so it's not all doomsday, and be watching for that on episode 2.
Don't forget to subscribe. Check out our website. Subscribe to us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode.
All the social,
Then become a
right?
member. Don't forget to become a member.
We got a fantastic Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff. So, all right, that's a wrap on the
wrap.
first episode of Global Company Culture
Wrap it up.
Podcast.
Ooh.